In the sun-bleached expanse of Nevada's high desert, where fortunes are made and secrets stay buried, Gideon Ashford's reputation precedes him. A man who built his empire through calculated decisions and iron will, he never expected a routine horse auction to shatter his carefully ordered world. But fate had other plans. Behind the polished facade of America's most prestigious livestock sale, a darkness lurks, one that deals in human lives instead of thoroughbreds. When a storm forces Gideon to take shelter in the back barns, he stumbles upon a horrifying discovery: a pregnant woman, bound and hidden in a horse stall. Her presence there will unravel a web of corruption that reaches from local power brokers to international crime syndicates. What could drive a man who has everything to risk it all for a stranger's life? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Silver Creek Livestock Auction had drawn the finest bloodlines in North America for over 60 years. Gideon Ashford's boots echoed against polished concrete as he made his way through the main pavilion, ignoring the whispers that followed. In his wake, his reputation had been built on an eye for exceptional horseflesh and an unwillingness to compromise. The silver-handled riding crop in his hand, a family heirloom passed down through 3 generations of Ashfords, tapped steadily against his leg as he walked. The young auctioneer's assistant scrambled to catch up with him. "Mr. Ashford, we've placed lot 247 in the premium viewing stalls, just as you requested. Though with this weather coming in," she gestured toward the darkening sky visible through the pavilion's massive windows. Gideon paused, studying the approaching storm front. "How long until the Argentinian stallion goes up for bid?" 3 hours, sir, but the meteorologist is saying this system's moving faster than expected. We might need to adjust the schedule. Thunder rolled across the desert, closer now. Gideon could smell the rain coming, that distinctive scent of moisture meeting sun-baked earth. He'd been tracking this particular bloodline for years, waiting for the right combination of genes and temperament. The storm wouldn't deter him. "Show me to him," Gideon commanded, following the assistant through a series of increasingly quiet corridors. The main auction activity was concentrated in the front buildings, leaving the back barns eerily silent. Their footsteps echoed off metal walls as temperature dropped noticeably. The assistant's radio crackled. She listened intently, then turned to Gideon with obvious concern. "Sir, they're calling all staff to the main building. This storm's bringing high winds. Standard safety protocol." "Go," Gideon said, waving her off. "I know my way around horse barns." She hesitated only briefly before hurrying away, leaving him alone in the dimly lit corridor. The first heavy drops of rain hammered against the metal roof as Gideon made his way toward the premium stalls. He'd been in enough barns to navigate by instinct, even as the emergency lights flickered ominously. The stallion would be in the last row, away from the general population. Prize horses needed privacy, space to maintain their composure before going under the lights. Gideon moved purposefully, his riding crop now held still at his side. Years of experience had taught him to read a horse's quality in these quiet moments, not just under the show lights. A sharp crack of thunder made the building shudder. The emergency lights failed completely for several seconds before sputtering back to a dim glow. In that moment of darkness, Gideon heard something that stopped him cold, a sound that had no place in a horse barn, a muffled human whimper. He stood perfectly still, listening. The rain drummed heavily overhead, but there it was again, something. Between a sob and a gasp, coming from one of the premium stalls, Gideon moved cautiously toward the sound. His hand found the stall door in the dim light, fingers wrapping around the familiar shape of the latch. The door swung open with a whisper of well-oiled hinges. At first glance, the stall appeared empty, save for fresh bedding and a water bucket. But as his eyes adjusted to the shadows, Gideon saw movement behind the carefully stacked hay bales. He stepped inside, moving around the barrier. The sight struck him like a physical blow. A woman lay curled on her side, hands bound behind her back, ankles secured with zip ties. A dirty cloth was tied tightly across her mouth. But what caught Gideon's attention most was the obvious swell of her pregnant belly. Their eyes met. Hers were wide with equal parts terror and desperate hope. Without hesitation, Gideon knelt beside her, setting his riding crop aside as he reached for the gag. The woman flinched at his touch, but held still as he worked the knot free. "Please," she whispered as soon as the cloth fell away, her voice raw. "They'll be back soon. They're going to move me after the auction closes." Gideon's mind raced through implications, even as his hands moved to the zip ties. "Who?" "Men in suits who look like buyers. But they deal in people, not horses." She drew a shaky breath. "I escaped once. They found me. Please, I can't let them take my baby." Another crack of thunder rattled the building. Gideon helped the woman sit up, noting the bruises on her arms, the way she protectively cradled her belly. The silver-handled crop caught the emergency. Lights glow, drawing both their attention. A symbol of his family's legacy in the horse trade, a legacy built on integrity and honor. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Eva. Eva Rojas." Gideon stood, offering his hand. "Well, Ms. Rojas, it seems I'm in the market for more than just a stallion today." Gideon's mind worked with the precision of a chess master, calculating moves and consequences. Eva leaned heavily against the stall wall, her legs unsteady after hours of being bound. The storm's fury provided cover, but it wouldn't last forever. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying over the screen. "The moment we step out of this stall, we're on camera. You're about to become the most expensive quarter horse I've ever purchased." He showed her the bank transfer confirmation he'd just created, a convincing forgery that would hold up under initial scrutiny. "They have men at every exit," Eva whispered, one hand pressed against her lower back. "Real security and their own people, wearing the same uniforms." Gideon retrieved his riding crop, its silver handle glinting. "Then we'll walk right past them. The trick isn't avoiding attention, it's commanding it." He shrugged off his suit jacket, draping it over her shoulders. The expensive material hung loose, but it helped conceal her condition and the worst of her dishevelment. "Keep your head down. You're my newly acquired mare, and I'm a very particular buyer who insisted on immediate transport." He touched the crop lightly to her elbow, guiding her. "If anyone stops us, let me handle it. These people respect money and power. I have both." They stepped into the corridor just as another thunderclap shook the building. Eva fell naturally into the slightly sideways walk of a woman in her third trimester, which closely resembled a horse favoring its left side. Gideon's pace was unhurried but purposeful as they approached the main pavilion. A security guard straightened at their approach. "Sir, we're moving everyone to the main building until the storm passes." "Unacceptable." Gideon's voice carried the weight of generations of wealth and privilege. "I've just paid an exceptional price for this mare, and she's showing signs of colic. My trailer's already waiting, and I have a vet standing by at my ranch." He produced his buyer's credentials and the forged bill of sale with the same confident flourish he'd used to close countless legitimate deals. The guard barely glanced at the paperwork, more interested in getting out of the rain that now blew sideways through the loading area. "Of course, Mr. Ashford. Do you need assistance? I don't let anyone else handle my premium stock." Gideon's hand remained steady on Eva's elbow as they stepped into the downpour. His Mercedes G-Wagon was parked in the VIP section, its engine already running, thanks to the remote start he'd triggered with his phone. The rain provided crucial seconds of visual cover as he helped Eva into the passenger seat. She bit back a groan as she settled into the leather interior. Gideon pulled out of the auction complex with deliberate calm, nodding to the gate attendant. In his rearview mirror, he could see people rushing for cover from the storm. Nothing about their departure would raise immediate alarms. They were 5 miles down the highway when Eva finally spoke. "Your name is Ashford?" "Gideon Ashford." He glanced at her, noting the way she cradled her belly. "There's water in the console, small sips. When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday, I think." The days blur. She took a shaky breath. They'll come looking. Once they realize I'm gone, let them. Gideon's voice hardened as he pressed the accelerator. My ranch has 3,000 acres of high desert privacy, state-of-the-art security, and men who are very good at what they do. More importantly, it has a fully equipped medical suite. You need proper care. Why? Eva turned to study his profile. Why risk everything for a stranger? Gideon's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The forged bill of sale sat between them on the console, a reminder of how quickly moral lines could blur when circumstances demanded. Because some lines you can't uncross once you know they exist. What they're doing, it stops here. The storm followed them north into the gathering darkness, nature's own accomplice in their escape. Eva's breathing gradually steadied as the highway miles accumulated. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just traded one form of danger for another. The kind of men who traded in human lives wouldn't simply let her disappear. But then, they didn't know what kind of man they were dealing with either. The Ashford Ranch materialized out of the darkness like a fortress, its adobe walls and iron gates, a stark declaration of privacy. Security cameras tracked their approach, and Gideon noted with approval that his night staff had already illuminated the medical suite's private entrance. No questions asked. That's why he paid them so well. My grandfather built this place, Gideon explained as they passed through the gates. Back when a man's word and a handshake meant something. He glanced at Ava, who had grown increasingly quiet over the last hour. He also believed in being prepared for anything. The medical suite was his idea. They pulled up to a discreet side entrance. Before Gideon could exit the vehicle, his ranch manager, Marcus Chen, appeared with a wheelchair. A former combat medic, Marcus took one look at Ava, and his expression shifted from professional curiosity to focused concern. Full medical intake, Gideon ordered, helping Ava from the car. Use the secure files. Marcus nodded, already checking Eva's pulse. The storm knocked out the main power lines, but the generators are running. Doc Henderson? No, not yet. Gideon's tone made it clear this situation required absolute discretion. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The medical suite occupied what had once been the ranch's original master wing. Modern medical equipment contrasted with exposed wooden beams and adobe walls. Marcus helped Eva onto an examination bed while Gideon retrieved something from a glass-fronted cabinet. An antique leather medical bag, its brass fittings gleaming under the LED lights. This belonged to my grandmother, he said, placing it carefully beside Eva. She was one of the first female doctors in the county, delivered half the ranch hand's children back in her day. He opened the bag, revealing immaculately maintained vintage medical instruments alongside modern supplies. Marcus keeps it stocked. Some things don't need improving. Ava's professional interest briefly overcame her exhaustion. You're well prepared for someone who raises horses? Nearest hospital's an hour away, Marcus explained, efficiently taking her vital signs. In ranch country, you learn to handle things yourself. He frowned at her blood pressure reading. When's your due date? 6 weeks. Eva's hand trembled as she reached for the glass of water Marcus offered. But there's been some cramping. Gideon stepped back, letting Marcus work. The younger man's capable hands and calm demeanor had the desired effect. Ava's shoulders gradually relaxed as he conducted a thorough examination, explaining each step. The vintage medical bag remained open beside her, a tangible link to another strong woman who had once provided sanctuary in this same room. You need rest and fluids, Marcus finally declared. The baby's heartbeat is strong, but your blood pressure's concerning. I'm going to start an IV, get some nutrients into you. He looked to Gideon. The Rose Suite's ready. It's the most secure guest room we have. I'll handle it. Gideon stepped forward as Marcus began gathering supplies. Eva, I know you have no reason to trust us, but I give you my word, you're safe here. She studied him with eyes that had seen too many broken promises. Those men, they have connections, money, power. So do I. Gideon's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. And unlike them, I don't have to hide in the shadows. Marcus returned with an IV kit and medications. As he worked, Gideon found himself cataloguing the bruises on Eva's arms. The rope burns at her wrists. Each mark fed a slow, burning anger he hadn't felt in years. He'd built his life around control and calculated decisions. But seeing evidence of such casual cruelty awakened something else, something that had been dormant since Sarah's death. "Try to rest," Marcus said, adjusting the IV flow. "I'll check on you every hour." Eva nodded, fatigue finally overwhelming. Her vigilance. Gideon waited until her breathing steadied before following Marcus into the hallway. "She's been badly traumatized." Marcus kept his voice low. "But she's strong. A fighter. She'll need to be." Gideon glanced at the security feeds, displayed on a nearby monitor. The storm still raged outside, but his defenses were solid. "Get me everything you can on trafficking rings operating through livestock auctions. And Marcus, as of now, we're in lockdown. No one in or out without my direct approval." "Already done, boss." Marcus hesitated. "This is going to get complicated." "Isn't it?" Gideon thought of the forged bill of sale, the lines he'd already crossed. "It was complicated the moment I found her." He turned back toward the medical suite, where his grandmother's medical bag still sat open, its contents bridging past and present. But some choices make themselves. Dawn broke over the ranch with deceptive serenity. Eva stood at the Rose Suite's window, watching horses move through the morning mist. The IV had been removed, but she could still feel the phantom ache where the needle had been, a reminder that this wasn't a dream. A soft knock preceded Marcus's arrival with breakfast. "Mr. Ashford would like to know if you feel up to joining him in the library." He noted her hesitation. "You're not a prisoner here. Every request is just that, a request." The library proved to be a testament to old money, with leather-bound books and a massive stone fireplace. Gideon stood at a broad desk, examining what appeared to be newspaper archives. He looked up as she entered, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "I've been doing some research," he said without preamble. 3 years ago, a nurse at Las Vegas General Hospital reported suspicious injuries among foreign-born pregnant women. The women disappeared before police could investigate. The nurse who reported it also vanished. He met Ava's eyes. "That was you, wasn't it?" Ava's hands tightened on the chair's leather arms. "They were bringing girls in with complications. Preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, all preventable with proper care. When I started asking questions, documenting cases," she swallowed hard. "One night, I found one of the girls dead in her hospital bed. They said it was natural causes. But I knew better. I had proof, so I ran. But they found you. 8 months ago, I was working at a clinic in Oregon under an assumed name." Her hand drifted to her belly. "I'd met someone, was building a new life. They killed him and took me back." Gideon spread several newspaper clippings across the desk. Headlines about missing women, suspicious deaths, corruption investigations. That went nowhere. They operate through legitimate businesses, auction houses, medical supply companies, transportation firms. The pregnant women are kept until they deliver. Then the babies are sold to wealthy clients who don't want to wait through normal adoption channels. The mothers usually disappear afterward. Eva added quietly, "I saw the records." "You kept evidence?" She nodded. "Encrypted drive, hidden where they won't find it. Names, dates, financial transactions, enough to bring down their entire operation." A bitter smile touched her lips. "Not that it matters now." Gideon picked up one particular clipping, older than the others. The headline read, "Tragic Accident Claims Life of Prominent Rancher's Wife." The photo showed a younger Gideon with a dark-haired woman. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying the weight of old grief. "She died 7 years ago. The official report said mechanical failure, brake lines on her car. But she'd been looking into some irregularities at charitable organizations she supported. Organizations that claimed to help immigrant women find health care. Eva studied the photograph. You think it was them? I could never prove it. Sarah was passionate about helping people, but she was also methodical, kept detailed records. After her death, her office was broken into, all her files stolen. His fingers traced the edge of the clipping. The police called it a routine burglary. I called it what it was, a cover-up. Why are you telling me this? Gideon carefully returned the clippings to a leather folder. Because you need to understand. This isn't charity or impulse. What these people do, how they operate. Sarah saw it. You saw it. Now I've seen it. That creates an obligation. They'll come looking eventually, Eva warned. They always do. I'm counting on it. Gideon's tone hardened. But this time, they're not dealing with a nurse working alone or a philanthropist who didn't know the risks. They're facing someone who understands exactly what they are and has the resources to fight back. Eva rose, moving to examine a photograph. On the mantel, Gideon and Sarah at what appeared to be a hospital wing dedication. Your wife. She would have helped them too, wouldn't she? The women, without hesitation. Something shifted in Gideon's expression, a softening around the eyes. Get some rest, Eva. You and your child are safe here. We'll figure out the next steps once you've recovered your strength. But as Eva left the library, she glanced back to see Gideon returning to the newspaper clippings, his posture that of a man preparing for war. She understood then he wasn't just offering sanctuary, he was seizing an opportunity for justice long denied. The morning sun caught the gilt lettering on the leather folder, Sarah Ashford Memorial Foundation. Even in death, his wife was still saving lives. Marcus found the envelope during his morning perimeter check. No prints, no security footage, just expensive cream-colored stationery placed precisely in the center of Gideon's saddle. Inside, elegant handwriting delivered its message with chilling courtesy. A matter of property rights requires your attention. The mare you recently acquired was sold without proper authorization. We represent interested parties prepared to offer significant compensation for her immediate return. This courtesy notice expires in 48 hours. After that, resolution becomes messier. Professional courtesy between businessmen need not deteriorate into unpleasantness. Gideon read the note twice before passing it to Marcus. Analysis? They got past our outer senses. Marcus's expression was grim. Had to be professionals. Our guards never saw a thing. Not professionals, Gideon corrected. Rich men's servants, there's a difference. He glanced toward the main house where Eva was resting. Double the night patrols, and get me everything you have on private security firms operating out of Las Vegas. Already started background checks. Marcus hesitated. Boss, these people, they're used to getting what they want. So am I. The morning sun cast long shadows across Gideon's office as he made calls, pulling strings cultivated over decades in the horse trade. Money talked, but information was power. By noon, he had names, shell companies, private security firms, auction houses linked by threads of ownership so thin they were almost invisible. Eva found him there, the threatening note still open on his desk. She picked it up, her nurse's training evident in the careful way she handled it. They're being polite. That's when they're most dangerous. Speaking from experience. The last time they caught up with me, they sent flowers first. Her hand drifted to her belly. Then they killed David, my baby's father. Gideon studied her, noting the steel beneath her vulnerability. You're having contractions. She blinked in surprise. How did you... I've bred horses for 30 years. I know labor signs. He stood, guiding her to a chair. How long? Just Braxton Hicks. False labor. But her grip on the chair's arm was white-knuckled. It's too early, 6 weeks too early. Gideon pressed the intercom. Marcus, we need the doctor. Now. No hospitals. Ava's voice carried the edge of panic. They have people in every emergency room in 3 states. Dr. Henderson's been with my family for 20 years. Gideon's tone was gentle but firm. She handled all of Sarah's pregnancies, both the successful ones and— He paused. She understands discretion. Eva's eyes widened slightly at this glimpse into his past, but another contraction prevented her response. Gideon knelt beside her chair, his hand steady on her shoulder. Breathe through it, that's it. When the contraction passed, she picked up the threatening note again. 48 hours. What's your plan? First, we make sure you and the baby are safe. He took the note, feeding it through a shredder. Then we remind these gentlemen why crossing an Ashford has always been poor business practice. A knock announced Marcus's return. Doctor's 10 minutes out. And boss, our friends made a mistake. Their courtesy notice came on letterhead, watermark paper, custom order. I'm tracing the manufacturer now. Gideon nodded approval. Every act of arrogance left a trail. These men operated in shadows, but their egos demanded the finest things. That vanity would be their undoing. You should know. Eva's voice was quiet but steady. I'm not just running from them. I'm running towards something. My evidence. If I can reach it. Where? She met his eyes. You don't want that information. It's safer, Ava. Gideon's interruption was gentle. We're past that. You're not alone anymore. The morning sun caught the shredded pieces of the threatening note, turning them into glittering fragments, like the piece of their puzzle, scattered, but not destroyed. Eva watched them fall, one hand pressed against her child's restless movement. A bus station locker, she finally said, in Salt Lake City. Everything they wouldn't want found, everything Sarah might have died trying to expose, it's all there. Gideon's expression hardened with decision. Marcus, get the helicopter ready. We have 48 hours to change the game. Thunder rumbled. In the distance, another storm approaching. But this time, they would be ready for it. Dr. Henderson's examination confirmed what they feared. Eva's stress levels were triggering preterm labor warnings. Bed rest, she ordered. Her grey hair and no-nonsense demeanor brooking no argument. And I mean complete rest. This baby needs at least 4 more weeks. Gideon watched the doctor's headlights disappear down the ranch road, then turned to the bank of security monitors in his office. Marcus had upgraded the system after Sarah's death, installing military-grade surveillance that covered every approach. To the ranch. Tonight, those cameras told a story. There! Marcus pointed to the northwest feed. See how the coyotes are moving? Something's pushing them off their usual route. Gideon studied the thermal imaging. Small red shapes. The coyotes. Fleeing from larger heat signatures, moving through the scrubland. Human signatures. How many? I count 6. Professional pattern. They're probing our perimeter. A quiet voice came from the doorway. They always send 6. Eva stood there in a borrowed robe, pale but determined. 2 teams of 3. It's their standard protocol. You should be resting, Gideon chided, but he pulled up a chair for her. She needed to see this, needed to understand they weren't helpless. The second team will approach from the opposite direction, she continued, studying the monitors, creating a distraction while the first team makes their move. Marcus finished. He tapped another screen showing the southeast corner. More heat signatures, right where Eva predicted. Gideon's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her. Watch. The first team reached the outer fence. Night vision cameras caught the glint of wire cutters. Then brilliant light flooded the area as hidden floods activated. Simultaneously, recorded wolf howls echoed through hidden speakers. A psychological deterrent Marcus had installed based on his combat experience. The intruders scattered, their professional formation breaking under the sensory assault. On the opposite side, the second team retreated more strategically, but the message was clear. The element of surprise was lost. That was just a test, Ava whispered. They'll be back with better intel, better equipment. Yes. Gideon rewound the footage, studying their movements. But now we know their methods, and they know we're not as soft a target as they expected. He turned to Marcus. Send the footage to Sheriff Coleman. No official report, just a courtesy heads-up about trespassers. Marcus nodded. Already downloading. But boss, Coleman's been asking questions about that bill of sale from the auction. Let him ask. Gideon's tone was steel wrapped in silk. Everything's in order, isn't it, Ava? She understood. The forged paperwork had, to be perfect, their only shield against official scrutiny. Yes, everything's legitimate. A warning tone drew their attention back to the monitors. One of the retreating intruders had dropped something at the fence line. Marcus zoomed the camera, revealing a small package. Don't send anyone to retrieve it until dawn. Eva's voice carried the weight of experience. They'll be watching to see how we react, how quickly we respond to threats. Gideon studied her with newfound respect. You've learned their tactics well. I had to. Her hand pressed against her belly as the baby shifted. Survival is a harsh teacher. The night stretched on. Eva refused to return to bed, instead watching. The monitors with them, providing insights into the intruders' methods. Her medical training gave her a unique perspective on their movements, the way they maintained formation even in retreat. Military backgrounds, she noted, but not American training. The way they move, I'd guess private military contractors. Eastern European. Marcus raised an eyebrow at Gideon. She's good. She's right. Gideon rewound the footage again, capturing clear images of their attackers' faces. These men are mercenaries, which means they have no personal stake in this fight, just a paycheck. That makes them more dangerous, Eva warned. Not less. No. Gideon's voice carried quiet certainty. It makes them predictable. Mercenaries. And can be bought. Their loyalty only runs as deep as their next payment. He paused the footage on a frame, showing all 6 men clearly. Marcus, get these images to our friends in private security. Let's find out who's currently shopping for talent in the Southwest. Dawn approached, painting the desert in watercolor shades of pink and gold. The night's excitement had taken its toll. Ava dozed in her chair, one hand protectively cradled. Over her child. Gideon draped his jacket over her shoulders, then turned back to the monitors, where the package still sat at the fence line. They're escalating faster than expected, Marcus observed quietly. Good. Gideon's expression was granite. The sooner they make their real move, the sooner this ends. But they all knew it would get worse before it got better. The package left at the fence line contained Eva's old nursing credentials. Her ID badge from Las Vegas General still clipped to a lanyard stained with what looked suspiciously like blood. A message scrawled across the badge in red ink. Time. To come home. But their psychological warfare backfired spectacularly that afternoon when one of the ranch hands was thrown from a spooked horse. As Marcus struggled to stabilize the unconscious man, Eva's training took over. Possible cervical injury, she directed, her voice carrying the calm authority of an experienced trauma nurse. We need a backboard and C-collar. Her eyes never left the patient as she rattled off vital signs and symptoms to Dr. Henderson over the phone. Gideon watched from the barn doorway as Eva orchestrated the emergency response. The damaged ID badge hung forgotten at her makeshift workstation, its attempt at intimidation transformed into a symbol of her true strength. BP's dropping, Marcus reported, his combat medic training complementing Ava's expertise. Push fluids, she ordered, already starting a second IV line. And get me that portable ultrasound from the medical suite. I need to check for internal bleeding. The ranch hands who'd gathered to help moved with newfound respect, following her instructions without hesitation. This wasn't just their boss's protected guest anymore. This was a medical professional saving one of their own. Dr. Henderson arrived 20 minutes later to find her patient stabilized and properly immobilized. The older doctor's appraising look spoke volumes. Nice work! You didn't mention emergency medicine was your specialty. 3 years in a level 1 trauma center, Eva replied, finally allowing herself to sit as the adrenaline ebbed. You learn to think fast and stay calm under pressure. The doctor's tone held approval as she reviewed Eva's interventions. Not many nurses could handle a potential spinal injury in a barn with minimal equipment. Gideon stepped forward as Eva swayed. Slightly. That's enough excitement. You're supposed to be on bed rest. But Eva's attention was fixed on her old ID badge, its plastic surface scratched and stained. They thought this would frighten me, remind me of what I lost. She picked it up, tracing the embossed letters of her name. Instead, it reminded me of who I am, what I can do. Speaking of doing things, Dr. Henderson interjected, I could use someone with your skills at my clinic. Once this situation is resolved, of course. Good nurses are hard to find in ranch country. The offer hung in the air, a glimpse of a possible future. Ava's hand drifted to her belly as the baby kicked, perhaps sensing her surge of emotion. Let's focus on getting you both safely to full term first, Gideon suggested quietly, but his expression had softened, seeing her in her element. Later that evening, after the injured ranch hand had been transported to the hospital with a favorable prognosis, Eva found herself in Gideon's study. The ID badge sat between them on his desk. Their message was clear, she said. They're done waiting. So are we. Gideon pushed a file across the desk. Marcus traced the mercenaries, former Serbian special forces, now working for a private security firm with interesting financial connections. The same firm that Eva trailed off, remembering Sarah's accident. Yes. His voice held controlled fury. They're getting sloppy, using the same contractors, overconfident or desperate. Eva studied the surveillance photos. I've seen what happens when they feel cornered. They'll sacrifice anyone, their own people, innocent bystanders. Nothing matters except protecting their operation. Then we'll be smarter. Gideon's hand covered hers briefly. You proved something today, not just to the ranch hands, but to yourself. You're not just surviving anymore, Eva. You're fighting back. She looked down at her ID badge, at the younger woman smiling hopefully from the photograph. That Eva died the night they killed David. No, Gideon's voice was firm. She got stronger, wiser. Today proved that. A knock interrupted them. Marcus, with the evening security update. Perimeter's quiet, but I've got our people watching for any reaction to this afternoon's excitement. Word travels fast in ranch country. Our visitors may not appreciate their target displaying medical skills in such a public way. Eva straightened in her chair, one hand pressed against her active child. Good. Let them know they failed. That badge was supposed to be a reminder of my helplessness. Instead, Gideon finished, it's a declaration of war. The badge caught the evening light, its scratched surface transforming the damage into something like battle scars. Not a symbol of past trauma, but a testament to survival, to strength. The old ranch ledger sat open on Gideon's desk, its leather binding cracked with age. To anyone else, it appeared to contain nothing but routine business records, horse sales, breeding schedules, feed orders. But between the lines of precise penmanship lay a network of alliances built over generations. My father taught me this system, Gideon explained, turning weathered pages. During Prohibition, ranchers developed their own code, ways to communicate who could be trusted, who was in trouble, who needed help. His finger traced a particular entry. See this breeding record for a mare named Midnight Witness. That's actually a message to every ranch within 300 miles. Eva studied the careful notation. You're calling in favors. I'm calling in history. He showed her more entries, each carefully coded. Every major ranch family out here owes something to someone else. It's how we survived the lean years, the disasters, the threats. Marcus entered with fresh coffee and security reports. Word spreading. Clayton Ranch confirmed they'll watch the North Passes. Henderson's placed extra guards on the medical clinic. Even old man Rodriguez activated his network. Rodriguez? Eva asked. Owns the largest trucking company in 3 states. Gideon explained. Nothing moves on these roads without his drivers seeing it, and they're all family, cousins, nephews, in-laws, loyal to the bone. Eva's hand drifted to her belly, a habitual gesture of protection. You're creating a wall around us. No, Gideon's voice was quiet. We're creating a community. These families, they've seen too many people disappear. Too many unexplained accidents. Everyone knew something was wrong, but no one had proof. Until now. She thought of her hidden evidence, the documentation that could expose everything. Marcus laid out satellite photos of the routes between the ranch and Salt Lake City. Rodriguez's people report increased private security presence along the main highways. They're watching for us. Then we don't use highways. Gideon turned back to the ledger, making careful notations. There are older roads, ranch tracks, ways that don't show up on modern maps. Eva watched him write, seeing how each entry carried messages invisible to outsiders. You're not just planning a retrieval. You're building an army. An army implies a violence, Gideon corrected. This is something more powerful. People connected by bonds, stronger than money, stronger than fear. A knock announced Dr. Henderson's arrival for Eva's daily checkup. The older woman carried her medical bag and a determined expression. Your blood pressure's still too high, she announced after the examination, but the baby's strong, fighting, just like her mama. Her? Eva's voice caught. Mother's intuition. The doctor smiled, and speaking of mothers, she turned to Gideon. Sarah's old women's shelter network is still active, underground railroad style. Just say the word. Gideon made another notation in the ledger. Keep them on standby. We may need safe houses. Eva looked between them, understanding growing. Sarah, she wasn't just doing charity work, was she? She was building this same kind of network. A wife. Gideon's voice held pride tinged with old pain. Understood that real power isn't in money or threats. It's in people who choose to stand together. Marcus cleared his throat. Latest message from Rodriguez. His people spotted 3 private helicopters moving into regional airports, high-end, executive models. They're bringing in the principals. Eva's face paled. The actual buyers and sellers. They never expose themselves unless they're ready to end this. Gideon's expression hardened as he made one final entry in the ledger. Good. Let them come. Every move they make, every resource they show, it all goes in here. Evidence we can use, if we survive, Eva added quietly. When we survive. Gideon closed the ledger with careful precision. Because you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for every person named in this book, every family that's lost someone, every community they've tried to intimidate into silence. Dr. Henderson patted Eva's hand. Get some rest, dear. Your baby needs her strength. She gave Gideon a meaningful look. And so will you. As night fell over the ranch, Eva watched from her window as trucks moved along distant roads. Horses were relocated to secure pastures, and men took up strategic positions, all coordinated through a humble leather ledger that proved the pen truly was mightier than the sword. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. A fighter, the doctor had said. Like her mother, like all the mothers who had come before, whose stories were written in coded messages and careful alliances. They weren't just hiding anymore. They were preparing to make a stand. Sheriff Coleman arrived at sunset, his cruiser kicking up dust along the ranch road. Marcus met him at the gate, following standard security protocol. But something in the sheriff's stance set off warning bells. He's alone, Marcus reported through the secure channel. No backup, not answering radio calls from dispatch. Gideon watched through the security feed as Coleman approached the main house. The sheriff's badge caught the dying sunlight. A flash of guilt and shadow. Eva, go to the panic room. Now! She started to protest, then saw his expression. Without a word, she headed for the hidden entrance behind the library panels. They drilled for this, practiced until every step was muscle memory. Coleman's smile was all wrong when Gideon met him on the porch. Beautiful evening for a visit, Ashford. Unannounced visits aren't like you, John. Neither is harboring. Fugitives. Coleman's hand rested casually on his holstered weapon. That bill of sale you showed me, expert forgery, almost perfect. But then, You always did pay for the best. Gideon's voice remained even. Coming alone seems risky for an arrest. Who said anything about arrest? Coleman's badge glinted again, a symbol of authority corrupted. Some very wealthy people want to resolve this quietly. They're willing to be generous. 7 figures, Ashford. Just walk away. Like you did? Gideon's tone carried genuine curiosity. How long have they owned you, John? The sheriff's expression hardened. You don't understand the reach these people have. What they can do. I understand betrayal. Gideon's gaze flickered to the security camera. Sarah trusted you. When she came to you with concerns about missing women, you promised to investigate. I did investigate. Coleman's laugh was bitter. Right into an offshore account and a guaranteed pension. Be smart, Ashford. You can't protect her. Already did. Gideon smiled coldly. While we've been having this pleasant chat, every word you've said has been broadcasting live to the state police and FBI. Amazing what Sarah's old network can accomplish when motivated. Coleman's hand flew to his weapon, but Marcus was faster. The ranch manager emerged from the shadows, his rifle trained with military precision. That's not happening, Sheriff. More vehicles approached. Not local police, but state-level tactical units. Coleman's face went slack as he realized the depth of his miscalculation. His badge, once a symbol of protection, now marked him as a conspirator. You're right about one thing, Gideon said quietly. Their reach is impressive, but so is mine. Sarah made sure of that before she died. Eva watched through the panic room security feed as Coleman was taken into custody. His badge was logged into evidence, another piece in the growing case against the trafficking ring. But his presence here warned of worse to come. They're getting desperate, she said when Gideon joined her later. Coleman was their insurance policy, their way of controlling local law enforcement. Now he's our leverage. Gideon brought up satellite imagery on the panic room screens. His arrest creates a window. They'll have to move quickly before he cuts a deal. The evidence in Salt Lake City. We go tonight. He showed her the planned route, a complex path using old ranch roads and Native American trading routes. Marcus has Rodriguez's best drivers standing by. Coleman's badge gives us probable cause for federal protection. Eva's hand pressed against her belly as the baby shifted restlessly. It's not just the evidence they want anymore. Coleman's arrest means they have to eliminate everyone who knows about their operation. Us, the ranch hands, Dr. Henderson. Let them try. Gideon's voice carried absolute certainty. Coleman forgot something fundamental about ranch country. Out here, a man's word is his bond. Break it, and you're not just facing one enemy, you're facing an entire community. As if to prove his point, the perimeter sensors showed more vehicles arriving. But these were ranch trucks and working rigs, carrying weather-beaten men and women who knew every hill and hollow of the high desert. People who had lost friends and family to accidents and disappearances. People who had waited years for a chance to fight back. Eva studied their faces on the security feeds. They're risking everything. No. Gideon's hand found hers. They're defending their own, like they should have done years ago. Coleman's badge sat in an evidence bag, its surface dulled under harsh fluorescent lights. No longer a symbol of corruption, but the first crack in the trafficking ring's armor. The first piece of real proof. I need to be there, Eva said quietly. When we get the evidence. It has to be me. Gideon started to object, then saw her expression. The same steel he'd seen in Sarah's eyes all those years ago. We go together. But first, he opened a hidden compartment in the panic room wall, removing a small box. Inside lay another badge. Sarah's old press credentials from her investigative reporting days. She'd want you to have this, he said simply. A reminder that the truth, however buried, finds its way to light. Eva held the badge carefully, feeling its weight. Not just metal and leather, but legacy, purpose. The baby kicked again, stronger now. A tiny fighter, sensing her mother's determination. Outside, engines rumbled to life as their alliance prepared to move. The hunt was about to begin. The old map's parchment crackled as Gideon spread it across the table in the ranch's summer cabin. Drawn by his grandfather in 1946, it showed features no modern satellite could reveal: hidden springs, cave systems, and narrow passes known only to local tribes and ranchers. 3 generations of Ashfords used this place as a hunting cabin, he explained, as Marcus secured the perimeter. Off the grid, but close enough to the main ranch for emergency radio contact. Eva sank into an old leather chair, exhaustion evident in every movement. The 15-mile journey through backcountry had been necessary but brutal on her pregnant body. Dr. Henderson immediately began checking her vital signs. Blood pressures elevated, the doctor murmured. The baby's active, though, fighting spirit. Gideon traced a route on the ancient map. Rodriguez's people spotted 3 private security teams converging on the main ranch. They'll find it empty. Not quite empty, Marcus corrected, checking his tactical radio. Our friends from the neighboring ranches are putting on quite a show. Lots of activity, lots of confusion about which vehicles might be carrying our special cargo. Eva leaned forward to study the map, her nurse's training, evident in how she unconsciously kept one hand pressed against her pulse point. These dates in the corners, they're not just years, are they? Coordinates, Gideon confirmed. My grandfather's code. The map's worthless without the key. He pointed to a series of seemingly random numbers. Every ranch family had their own system, made it impossible for outsiders to navigate the back country or track someone through it, Marcus added meaningfully. The baby kicked hard enough for Eva to wince. Dr. Henderson frowned at her blood pressure reading. You need rest, real rest, not just catching minutes between crises. The evidence in Salt Lake City, Eva began. We'll wait 12 hours, Gideon cut in firmly. We've got the sheriff in custody, the state police involved, and every ranch hand in 3 counties running interference. We can spare half a day to make sure you're both stable. As if to emphasize his point, the radio crackled with updates from their allies. The trafficking ring security teams were being led on a complex dance across ranch country, following false leads and contradictory sightings. Every minute bought was another minute for Eva's body to rest, for the baby to stay safely where it needed to be. Sarah used this cabin, Eva said suddenly, noticing a woman's touch in certain details. The well-stocked medical supplies, the comfortable furnishings that had no place in a hunting lodge. Her sanctuary. Gideon's voice held old memories. When she was deep into an investigation, needed to process evidence away from prying eyes. He paused. She was here the week before she died, working on something she wouldn't tell me about. Eva's hand found his, squeezed gently. The evidence I have, it might explain why. Which is exactly why you need to rest, Dr. Henderson interjected. You're no good to anyone if you collapse, and that little girl needs at least a few more weeks before she meets the world. Marcus returned from his perimeter check. Frost of the high desert night, dusting his shoulders. Everything's quiet. Rodriguez's oldest boy is running communications from the North Ridge. Says the security teams are getting frustrated, starting to make mistakes. Good. Gideon turned back to the map, to a section marked with a series of cryptic symbols. Because when we move, we're not taking any marked roads. These old Apache trails, they're barely wide enough for a horse, but they'll get us to Salt Lake City without crossing a single traffic camera. Assuming I can travel, Eva said quietly, acknowledging the reality of her condition. You'll travel? Dr. Henderson's tone was pure iron. Because I'm coming with you. Sarah would never forgive me if I let anything happen to either of you. The map seemed to glow in the cabin's lamplight, its web of secret paths and hidden meanings a testament to generations of ranchers who understood that true security lay not in force, but in knowledge. In community, in the wisdom of those who had lived on this land long before roads and fences tried to tame it. Eva dozed fitfully in the old chair, one hand resting on her belly, while Dr. Henderson monitored her closely. Gideon watched them both, understanding finally what Sarah had tried to build. Not just a network of information, but a network of protection, of hope. Marcus voiced what they were all thinking. They'll figure out we're not at the main ranch eventually. Yes. Gideon carefully refolded the map, each crease a piece of his family's legacy. But by then, we'll be ghosts. And ghosts, as my grandfather used to say, can only be tracked by those who know how to read the wind. Outside, the desert night wrapped around them like a blanket, hiding their sanctuary in its ancient silence. The encrypted satellite phone was military-grade, a piece of hardware Marcus had acquired during his service years. Its screen cast a blue glow across the cabin's main room as Eva typed rapidly, her medical credentials giving her access to systems the traffickers thought were secure. Every baby they sold had to have documentation, she explained, fingers flying across the keypad. Birth certificates, medical records, vaccination histories. They used a network of corrupt healthcare workers to create paper trails. Gideon watched. The data scroll passed. But you found a pattern, more than that. Eva pulled up a series of digital forms. I found their template. The same doctors signing off on births at different hospitals, sometimes hundreds of miles apart, often on the same day. Impossible coincidences, unless you know what you're looking for. Marcus whistled softly as he studied the information. That's a lot of federal violations, which is why the evidence in Salt Lake City is so important. Eva winced as the baby shifted but kept working. It's not just proof of trafficking. It's proof of a systematic corruption of medical records across state lines, the kind of thing that brings in federal task forces. The phone chirped, an incoming message from Rodriguez's network. Gideon read it twice, his expression hardening. They figured out we're not at the main ranch. Their teams are splitting up, widening the search area. Let them. Eva's voice held newfound steel as she typed. Because while they're looking for us, they don't realize what we're doing to them. She turned the phone's screen so they could all see. Medical licenses were being flagged for review. Insurance fraud investigations were being quietly opened. The very system they'd used to hide their operation was becoming a net to catch them. Sarah suspected this, Gideon said quietly. She was investigating insurance fraud when they killed her. Eva met his eyes. But she didn't have what I have: direct access to their documentation methods, knowledge of exactly how they falsify records. Dr. Henderson entered from her rest period, immediately noting Eva's position. You should be lying down. Almost done. Eva's hands were steady as she input the final sequences. There! Every medical record they've falsified in the past 5 years is now flagged for federal review. Even if they find us, even if they get to the evidence in Salt Lake City, this part can't be stopped. The phone's screen flickered with incoming alerts as systems across multiple states began automated audits. Like dominoes falling, each review triggered another, spreading through the bureaucratic network the traffickers had thought was their shield. They'll know someone's attacking their system, Marcus warned. Yes. Eva finally allowed Dr. Henderson to help her to the bedroom, but they won't know exactly what we've done. Not until it's too late. Gideon followed them, the encrypted phone still feeding data to federal servers. How long before they realize the extent of it? Hours, maybe days. Eva eased onto the bed, her hand pressing against a particularly forceful kick. Medical record systems are compartmentalized. What looks like routine audits in one state won't immediately alert administrators in another. By the time they see the pattern, the damage will be done. Gideon's smile held grim satisfaction. You're not just attacking their operation. You're attacking their legitimacy, like Sarah would have. Eva's voice was soft but certain. She understood. You don't fight these people with guns. You fight them with paper trails, with evidence they can't bury. Dr. Henderson checked. Eva's blood pressure frowning slightly. This little one's getting very active. She knows her mama's fighting back. The encrypted phone continued its quiet work, each transmission another crack in the trafficking ring's facade. Outside, the first light of dawn painted the desert in shades of rose and gold. Somewhere out there, security teams were searching for a pregnant woman and her protectors. But they were looking for runners, for victims they weren't prepared for. Hunters, Marcus coordinated with their allies, using the phone's secure channel to orchestrate the next phase. Rodriguez's drivers were in position. The neighboring ranches had eyes on every major road, and now, thanks to Ava's work, the traffickers' own system was becoming their prison. "Get some rest," Gideon told Ava. "We move at dusk." She caught his hand before he could leave. "They'll be desperate now. Dangerous. Good." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Because so are we." The encrypted phone sat between them, its screen still scrolling with data. Not just a communication device, but a weapon of truth, of justice. Each transmission a bullet fired not with gunpowder, but with the power of exposed secrets. Sarah would have appreciated the poetry of it, fighting monsters not with force, but with the very systems they'd corrupted, using their own machinery to tear down their walls. Outside, the desert wind carried the promise of change, of reckoning. The hunt was shifting, the hunters becoming the hunted. The first serious contraction hit as they were preparing to move out. Ava grabbed the doorframe, her knuckles white, face draining of color. "No," she whispered. "Not now. Please, not now." Dr. Henderson was at her side instantly, guiding her to sit. From her medical bag, she pulled a soft bundle wrapped in tissue paper, a hand-knitted baby blanket in cream wool. "Sarah made this," she explained, draping it around Eva's shoulders. "For the baby she lost. She said it helped, having something to hold on to during the hard moments." Eva clutched the blanket as another contraction gripped her. The wool still held a faint trace of lavender, as if carrying memories of another mother's hopes and fears. "It's too early." 34 weeks, Dr. Henderson corrected, checking vital signs. "Not ideal, but not impossible. This little girl's been fighting from the start." Gideon paced the cabin's main room, while Marcus coordinated with their allies outside. The evening light was fading, their planned departure window closing with each passing minute. "Rodriguez's scouts report increased activity on the back roads," Marcus said quietly. "They're systematically searching every property within a 100-mile radius." Another contraction. Ava's fingers twisted in Sarah's blanket. "How long until they find us?" "Hours, maybe less." Gideon knelt beside her. "Can she be moved?" Dr. Henderson's expression was grave. "These contractions are real, not Braxton Hicks. Moving her could accelerate labor. But staying here, they'll find us." Ava finished. Her face was pale but determined. "And if they do, everything we've done, everything Sarah died for, it all means nothing." The baby blanket slipped from her shoulders as she tried to stand. Gideon caught it, the soft wool a stark contrast to his calloused hands. He remembered Sarah holding it, in this same cabin, after they lost their child, the way she'd channeled her grief into investigating other lost children, missing mothers. "There's a third option." Marcus stepped forward. "The old mining tunnel. It connects to the Carter Ranch through the mountain. Rough terrain, but only half a mile through the tunnel itself." "No." Dr. Henderson's refusal was immediate. "She needs a hospital." "Which they're watching," Gideon reminded her. "Every emergency room within 200 miles is compromised." Ava doubled over with another contraction, stronger than the last. When she could speak again, her voice was steel. "The tunnel. If we can get through, how far to the nearest safe hospital?" Marcus consulted their map. "Carter's grandson is a highway patrol officer. He can have a medical transport waiting on the other side. 20 minutes by helicopter to a secure facility in Utah, where they're not looking for us," Gideon added, "where their network doesn't reach." Dr. Henderson began repacking her medical bag, professional efficiency masking her concern. "If we do this, we do it my way. At the first sign of serious complications, we abort. No evidence is worth 2 lives." Eva clutched Sarah's blanket, breathing through another contraction. The evidence isn't just paper, it's people, mothers, babies. If we don't stop them, we'll stop them. Gideon's voice held absolute certainty. But first, we get you both to safety. Marcus was already coordinating through the encrypted phone. Rodriguez's people would lead the security teams on a false trail south. The neighboring ranches would create a series of distractions, and through it all, a laboring mother would make her way through the heart of a mountain, carrying hope in the form of a dead woman's blanket. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind a maintenance shed, its raw walls reinforced with old timber. Eva insisted on walking, one hand braced against the rough rock, the other clutching Sarah's blanket. Each contraction brought them to a halt, time measured in harsh breathing and whispered encouragement. Almost there, Dr. Henderson kept promising. Just a little further. They were halfway through when Eva's water broke. No turning back now, she gasped, the blanket now wet with sweat. She's coming, ready or not. Gideon supported her weight, while Dr. Henderson checked the baby's position. The mining lamp's harsh beam caught the fear in the doctor's eyes. We need to move faster. A distant rumble echoed through the tunnel, vehicles approaching the cabin they'd left. Their pursuers were closing in. Remember what you told me? Eva's voice was strained but determined as she forced herself forward. About Sarah. That she understood real power isn't in money or threats. It's in people who choose to stand together, Gideon finished, helping her over a rough section. Eva nodded, then tensed with another contraction. Your wife, she's still helping people, still saving lives. Her fingers twisted in the baby blanket. She's helping us, right now. The tunnel air grew fresher, the exit ahead. Marcus's radio crackled with confirmation, medical transport standing by. They were going to make it. Behind them, shouts echoed through the mountain. Their pursuers had found the cabin, would soon find the tunnel. But by then, Eva straightened as much as she could, Sarah's blanket wrapped protectively around her belly. Ready or not, she whispered to her child, it's time to show them what fighters we are. The first shot echoed through the mountain tunnel just as they reached the exit. Marcus spun, his grandfather's Winchester lever-action rifle rising smoothly to his shoulder. The old weapon wasn't fancy or tactical, just American walnut and blued steel, handed down through generations of ranch defenders. Keep going, he ordered, the rifle's wood worn smooth by years of honest use. I'll hold them here, but Eva couldn't go anywhere. The strongest contraction yet brought her to her knees, Sarah's blanket barely cushioning her against the rocky ground. Dr. Henderson's assessment was quick and definitive. The baby's coming now. Gideon took position beside Marcus, his own rifle ready. The tunnel's acoustics carried their pursuers' voices clearly, professional mercenaries coordinating their advance. Men who killed for money, about to face men who fought for family, like the Alamo, Marcus said quietly, checking his ammunition. Better. Gideon's smile was fierce. We have friends. As if on cue, the night erupted with sound. Rodriguez's drivers had positioned their rigs to shine high beams into the tunnel mouth. Ranch hands on horseback emerged from the darkness, their own rifles gleaming. And above it all, the distinctive thrum of approaching helicopters. Not private security, but state police tactical units, called in by Carter's grandson. Eva's cry of pain cut through the chaos. Dr. Henderson worked with focused intensity, her voice steady. Almost there. One more push. The mercenaries tried to rush the tunnel. Marcus's Winchester spoke once, twice, precise shots that kicked up stone near their feet. A warning, not meant to kill. They fell back, professional instincts warring with their orders. Final chance, Gideon called into the darkness. Surrender to state authorities or face a whole lot of ranchers who are tired of finding missing women in their lands. The answer came in the form of gunfire, wild shots that showed their frustration. The old Winchester answered with the authority of generations, not attacking, just holding the line. Defending as it had always done. Then a new sound cut through the night, a baby's first cry, Dr. Henderson's triumphant voice. She's here, perfect little girl. The shooting stopped. In that moment of profound creation, even hardened killers paused. Eva's exhausted laugh echoed off stone walls as Dr. Henderson wrapped the newborn in Sarah's blanket, one mother's love embracing another's miracle. "Sarah," Eva whispered, cradling her daughter. "Her name is Sarah." The mercenaries tried one final rush. But they weren't just facing two men with rifles now. The entire community had arrived. Ranchers, ranch hands, truckers, all surrounding the tunnel mouth. And above them, state police helicopters swept the area with searchlights. "Your employers have already been arrested," Gideon announced, his voice carrying years of command. "The evidence is secure. Your medical records conspiracy is exposed. It's over." The Winchester spoke one last time as a mercenary raised his weapon, not to wound, but to disarm. The man's gun clattered away into darkness. Then, finally, professional judgment overcame greed. Weapons hit the ground, hands raised in surrender. Marcus kept his rifle trained steady as state police moved in. The old wood and steel had done its job, just as it had for his grandfather during Prohibition, for his father during the cattle wars, not through superior firepower, but through the willingness to stand ground, to protect. Eva watched it all through exhausted eyes, her newborn daughter quiet now, wrapped in a dead woman's blanket. Against all odds, against nature itself, little Sarah had waited just long enough, had fought just hard enough. "Your wife would be proud," Eva told Gideon as he knelt beside them. "Both of the name and what we've done with it." Dr. Henderson was already coordinating with the medical helicopter crew, ensuring her patient's safe transport, but she paused long enough to rest her hand on the Winchester's worn stock as Marcus lowered it. "Good medicine comes in many forms," she said softly. "Sometimes it's antibiotics and bandages. Sometimes it's good people with old rifles standing their ground." The sky was lightening, false dawn painting the desert in shades of promise. State police led their prisoners away while ranch hands secured the scene. Rodriguez's drivers were already spreading the word through their network. The shadow over ranch country was lifting. The missing women would be found. The stolen children would be returned. Marcus cleaned his grandfather's rifle with the care such a legacy deserved. Not a weapon of war, but a tool of protection. Like the doctor's bag, like Sarah's blanket, it was a symbol of something deeper than its mere physical form. The will to defend what was right. Little Sarah squirmed in her mother's arms. One tiny hand escaping the cream-colored wool. Eva touched her daughter's fingers with wondering joy. "Welcome to the world, little one. You're born into a family now, a community, a legacy," Gideon added softly, watching his wife's namesake take her first breaths in freedom. The Winchester rifle stood quiet now, its job done, but its presence remained a reminder. Some things were worth fighting for, worth defending, worth passing down to the next generation. The Salt Lake City bus station locker held more than just a USB drive. Eva, still weak from childbirth but insistent on being present, watched as Gideon opened the battered metal door. Inside lay Sarah's old laptop, untouched for 7 years, and a journal filled with her precise handwriting. "She knew," Eva said. Softly, little Sarah sleeping against her chest in the cream blanket. "She found the same evidence I did, followed the same trails. That's why they killed her." Gideon's voice was rough as he lifted the laptop. "But they never found this. Never knew she'd stored it all here." The federal agents accompanying them documented everything with methodical precision. Sarah's journal revealed a network even larger than they'd suspected. Corrupt officials, compromised medical staff, a web of money and influence spanning multiple countries. But it was the USB drive that held the key. Eva's hands trembled slightly as she plugged it into a secure federal laptop. "The encryption. I used the same system Sarah did. Medical record codes, twisted into a cipher. The files opened like doors to a dark kingdom. Financial transactions, birth records, names of buyers, sellers, facilitators, and most damning of all, video footage from hospital security cameras showing the same faces appearing in different, States, different facilities, always in the background when pregnant women disappeared. Cross-reference these with the records we flagged through the encrypted phone, Eva directed the federal analysts. It's not just historical evidence now, it's active cases, women and babies we can still save. The bus station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as teams of agents moved in and out, coordinating raids across multiple states. Eva swayed slightly, exhaustion catching up with her. Gideon steadied her with a gentle hand. "You should be resting," he chided softly. "Soon." Her focus remained on the screen as more files revealed themselves. First, we finish what Sarah started, what she died trying to expose. The USB drive's contents painted a devastating picture, not just of crimes, but of systematic failure, of institutions looking the other way, of power protecting power. Until now. "Mom," a young federal agent approached cautiously. "We've made the first arrests based on your data. 3 doctors in Nevada, a hospital administrator in Arizona, and—" he paused, his expression grave. "We found a facility. 15 pregnant women, all being held against their will. They're safe now." Eva's arms tightened around her sleeping daughter. Sarah would have wanted that most of all. The saves, not just the arrests, but their victory was not yet complete. As federal teams worked, Marcus's radio crackled with warning. "Boss, we've got movement, private helicopter, no flight plan, coming in fast. The last players making their desperate move. The ones with too much to lose, too much evidence against them. The ones who had ordered Sarah's death. Get Eva and the baby out," Gideon ordered, but Eva was already moving toward the secure room they'd prepared. Sarah's old laptop and journal clutched close. The helicopter's rotors thundered overhead as federal agents took position. But these weren't mercenaries now. These were the architects themselves, wealthy men unused to their power being challenged. Their desperation made them dangerous. "Federal agents!" The call went out as figures emerged from the helicopter. "On the ground!" Instead of compliance, they got gunfire. Wild, untrained shots from men who'd always paid others to do their violence. The federal response was precise, professional. When it ended, 3 of the trafficking ring's top operators were in custody, their fine suits stained with the grime of the bus station floor. The USB drive continued its work, spilling secrets into federal databases. Evidence collected by 2 brave women, one who had died for it, one who had given birth during its protection. Together they had built a case that could not be buried, could not be burned, could not be bought. Eva watched through the secure room's window as the traffickers were led away. Her daughter stirred, tiny fingers grabbing the cream wool blanket. "Look, little Sarah," she whispered. "Look what your namesake helped us do." Gideon joined them, his hand gentle on his new daughter's head. On the federal laptop, Sarah's files continued their relentless exposure of truth. The USB drive that had waited 7 years in darkness now blazed with light, with justice. "Take them straight to federal holding," the lead agent ordered. "No local facilities, no chances for their money to talk." Eva smiled tiredly. "No more shadows for them to hide in." The morning sun broke through the bus station's grimy windows, painting mother and child in gold. The USB drive had finished its work, its contents now secure in multiple federal servers. Evidence, once hidden, now impossible to erase. Sarah's truth, finally told. The federal courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, but Eva's focus remained on the thick manila envelope. In her hands, inside, the final judgment told a story in cold legal language. 37 consecutive life sentences, no possibility of parole. Assets seized, properties confiscated, medical licenses permanently revoked. The United States District Court hereby finds, Eva read softly, her daughter sleeping peacefully in a carrier against her chest. At 3 months old, little Sarah was thriving, unaware that her first breaths had come during the dismantling of an empire built on stolen lives. Gideon stood protective at her side as the U.S. attorney addressed the media. Today's sentencing represents the largest human trafficking prosecution in our state's history, thanks to the extraordinary courage of our key witness and the groundwork laid by investigative journalist Sarah Ashford before her tragic death. We have not only secured convictions, but have begun the process of reuniting families torn apart by these crimes. The court documents detailed the scope of their victory: 312 victims identified, 97 children restored to their birth mothers, 43 medical professionals facing criminal charges, 17 corrupt officials awaiting trial, numbers that represented lives, hopes, families restored. Mrs. Ashford would have been proud, Dr. Henderson said quietly, her testimony having helped seal the convictions. Both of her namesakes. Eva touched the cream blanket she'd fashioned into a sling for the baby. She was with us every step. Her research, her methods, even her blanket, everything she left behind helped bring this moment. The official court record included Sarah's original notes as exhibits, her precise documentation now part of legal history. The trafficking ring's sophisticated facade had crumbled under the combined weight of both women's evidence. What Sarah had begun, Eva had completed. Marcus appeared with news from their networks. Rodriguez's people confirmed the last satellite clinic was shut down this morning. The ranch families are organizing support for the rescued women: jobs, housing, medical care. Community taking care of its own. Gideon nodded approval, as it should have done years ago. The court documents were heavy with attachments: Sheriff Coleman's guilty plea, the medical records Eva had flagged through the encrypted phone, surveillance footage from the Salt Lake City bus station showdown, each piece a brick in the wall of justice that now stood complete. Some of the women are asking to testify at the remaining trials, Eva said, scanning the victim impact statements. They're not hiding anymore. Not running, because you showed them how to fight back. Dr. Henderson squeezed her shoulder. You and Sarah both. Little Sarah stirred, her tiny hand grabbing the edge of the court documents. Eva smiled at her daughter's unconscious gesture. Maybe she'll be a lawyer, continue the family tradition of fighting for justice. Speaking of family traditions, Gideon pulled another document from his briefcase. Adoption papers for 3 of the traffickers. Youngest victims, children with no families to return to. The home study is complete, if you're still sure. Eva's eyes filled with tears as she read the names. Sarah will have siblings, a family built from healing instead of harm. The courthouse plaza was clearing now, the media moving on to other stories, but the impact of this day would ripple outward for years. The court documents detailed not just punishments, but reforms, new protocols for hospital security, enhanced oversight of adoption processes, support services for vulnerable mothers. We've had calls from 3 other states, the U.S. attorney approached their group. Similar operations, similar methods. Your evidence, combined with Sarah's research, has given us a blueprint for dismantling these networks. Eva held the court documents close, feeling the weight of lives changed. Sarah used to write in her journal that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration, about making things right. She'd know. Gideon's voice was soft with memory. She spent her life trying to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The final page of the court judgment bore the judge's signature and an official seal. But it was the victim impact statements attached that held the real power. Hundreds of pages of testimony from women who had survived, who had fought back, who had reclaimed their lives and their children. Eva tucked the documents carefully into her bag next to Sarah's old journal. Different kinds of truth-telling, different kinds of justice, bound together in paper and purpose. Ready to go home? Gideon asked. Eva looked down at her sleeping daughter, then at the courthouse where justice had finally been served. Yes, she said simply, we have nurseries to paint, new lives to welcome. The autumn sun caught the courthouse's golden dome. As they descended the steps, behind them, the heavy doors closed on darkness exposed and justice delivered. Ahead, lay the future Sarah had died protecting, one where mothers and children remained united, where communities stood against evil, where truth could not be buried, where hope, like Sarah's legacy, lived on. 4 birth certificates lay on Gideon's desk, each telling its own story of loss and redemption. The first, little Sarah's, recorded her dramatic entry into the world. Place of birth, Carter Ranch Access Tunnel. Eva smiled every time she saw it, remembering the strength they'd found in desperate moments. The other 3 certificates were newer, amended by court order, to show Gideon and Eva Ashford as legal parents. Marina, age 4, Lucas, age 3, Isabella, just 18 months, children born into darkness now brought into light. They're settling in well, Dr. Henderson observed from the doorway, watching the children play in the ranch house's newly converted nursery. Amazing how resilient young hearts can be. Eva touched each certificate gently. Marina asked me yesterday if she could help with the younger ones coming to the sanctuary. She said she remembers being scared, wants to help them feel safe. The Ashford Ranch had transformed over the past 6 months. The summer cabin, where they'd hidden during their desperate flight, was now a transitional home for rescued mothers and children. The medical suite had expanded, with Dr. Henderson training a staff of trauma-informed nurses. Sarah's old women's shelter network had evolved into a formal support system, helping families rebuild their lives. Rodriguez's oldest daughter is bringing another group next week, Gideon reported, entering with little Sarah in his arms. 3 mothers, 4 children. His drivers are coordinating the transport through the underground railroad we established. The birth certificates represented more than just legal documents. They were promises, declarations that these children would grow up known, protected, loved. The careful calligraphy of their names stood in defiance of the trafficking rings. Cold numerical system. Isabella's starting to talk more, Eva said, watching their youngest adopted child stack blocks with focused determination. The therapist says it's a good sign. She's feeling secure enough to find her voice. Marina, their eldest, was reading to Lucas from a picture book, her dark curls mingling with his blonde ones as they shared the window seat. Despite their different backgrounds, they'd bonded instantly as siblings. Family created by choice, by love, by the simple act of saying yes to healing. The state police called. Marcus appeared with his daily security update. They're using our sanctuary model as a template for other ranches. Safe houses connected by trusted transport networks. Medical care, legal support, everything Sarah originally envisioned but on a larger scale. Eva gathered the birth certificates, tucking them into a family album she'd started. Each page held memories, photos of first steps, first words, first moments of trust given and received. Between these milestones were other images. Rescued, mothers graduating from nursing programs, children performing in school plays, families building new lives. Sarah would have loved this, Dr. Henderson said softly, watching Marina help Isabella with her blocks. Seeing the ranch become what she always hoped, a place of healing. Little Sarah, secure in her father's arms, reached for her mother. Eva took her, breathing in her baby scent. Sometimes I think she knew. Not consciously maybe, but somewhere deep down. She left us everything we needed, the evidence, the networks, even this. She touched the cream blanket, now framed and hanging in the nursery. She built the foundation. We just had to be brave enough to use it. Gideon watched their 4 children playing, birth daughter and adopted siblings already inseparable. The birth certificates in Eva's album testified to legal truth, but the deeper truth was written in moments like these. In Marina's protective and care of her younger siblings, in Lucas's emerging smile, in Isabella's growing confidence, in little Sarah's strong grip on life. The next group arrives Monday, he reminded Eva. 2 of the mothers are pregnant. Dr. Henderson wants you to help assess their medical needs. Eva nodded, her nurse's training now focused on helping others heal as she had healed. We'll have the cabin ready. Make sure they know they're not alone anymore. Outside, The desert bloomed with unexpected spring flowers, painting the ranch in colors of renewal. Inside, children's laughter echoed through halls that had once held only memories of loss. The birth certificates in Eva's album were more than documents. They were seeds of new stories, new beginnings. Marina called her mother to see the tower she'd built with her siblings. Eva went to them, gathering all 4 children close. Here was the future, built from the ashes of the past. Here was Sarah's legacy, living and breathing in every saved life, every restored family, every new beginning. Here was home. 1 year to the day after Eva had first been found in that auction stall, the entire ranch gathered for a photograph. The late afternoon sun painted everything in honey gold light as Dr. Henderson set up the camera timer, hurrying to join the assembled group on the main house steps. The resulting image captured everything they'd become. Eva and Gideon in the center, their 4 children arranged around them. Marina, tall and protective, one hand on Isabella's shoulder. Lucas, grinning widely, little Sarah reaching for his hair. The cream blanket, now a cherished family heirloom, wrapped around the youngest member of their growing family, a newly adopted baby boy whose mother had chosen them specifically, knowing her son would be raised in a home built on redemption. But the family portrait showed more than just the Ashfords. Marcus stood proudly with his tactical team, now trained specifically in sanctuary protection. Dr. Henderson's medical staff filled one side, their presence representing hope and healing. Rodriguez's drivers lined the back row, still coordinating. The underground railroad that had saved hundreds of lives, and in the very front, sitting on the steps, were the current sanctuary residents, mothers and children in various stages of rebuilding their lives. Their faces showed something that hadn't been there when they arrived: hope, purpose, belonging. The photograph would hang in the main house's entrance hall, opposite the memorial to Sarah that now included her press credentials, her journal, and the USB drive that had helped bring down an empire of darkness. Old and new, past and future, loss and redemption, all captured in a single moment of light. "Sometimes I think she guided us here," Eva said later that evening, watching their children play in the ranch house garden. Not literally, but all the pieces she left behind, the evidence, the networks, even this. She touched the frame, holding the family photo. She knew someone would need them someday. Gideon's hand found hers. She believed in leaving light for others to find their way. It's what she lived for. The ranch had become more than a sanctuary. It was a beacon. Other ranches had adopted their model, creating a network of safe havens across the West. Eva's medical protocols for treating trafficking survivors were being taught in nursing schools. The encrypted phone system Marcus had developed was now standard for witness protection programs. But it was the smaller victories that meant the most. Marina teaching new arrivals' children how to ride horses, showing them they were safe. Lucas helping younger kids with their reading, his own early trauma healed through helping others. Isabella, once nearly mute, now chattering happily in 2 languages as she played with sanctuary children, and little Sarah, named for a woman she'd never meet, already showing the same fierce compassion that had driven her namesake. Just last week, she'd solemnly offered her beloved cream blanket to a crying toddler new to the sanctuary. "She needs it more," she'd declared with simple wisdom. The family photograph caught all of this: the healing, the growth, the transformation of pain into purpose. Even the desert itself seemed changed, blooming more abundantly around the ranch, the buildings as if reflecting the life within them. "We're expecting 3 new families next week," Marcus reported, joining them in the garden. The FBI task force rescued them from a similar operation in Texas. They specifically asked to come here. Eva watched the sunset paint the desert in familiar gold. A year ago, she'd been hiding in darkness, terrified for her unborn child. Now she stood in light, surrounded by family, both blood and chosen, helping others find their way to freedom. The photograph would bear witness to this transformation. Future sanctuary residents would see it and know they weren't alone. Future traffickers would face it in court, confronted by the power of community over corruption. Future generations would look at it and understand that even the deepest wounds could heal, that families could be forged in fire and still emerge stronger. In the garden, their children's laughter mixed with the evening breeze. Above them, the first stars emerged, navigation points in the desert sky, guiding lights for those still searching for home, for those still finding their way to light.